Emily sat by the window of her small apartment, watching the raindrops slide down the glass. The world outside looked gray, but inside it felt even colder. The silence in the room was heavy, like a weight pressing down on her heart. On the table beside her there were old photo frames, pictures of friends with their babies, smiling, glowing, full of life. She had once imagined that kind of happiness for herself, but that dream had slowly turned into something painful, something she could no longer reach. Years ago, Emily had believed her life would be simple. She would fall in love, get married, and have a family. She had pictured a small house with a garden, laughter in the kitchen, tiny hands reaching for hers. But life, as it often does, had other plans. She had tried everything: doctor visits, medicine, late-night prayers, and even tears whispered into the darkness. But every test, every result carried the same cold truth: she couldn't have children. The words had been gentle, but they cut deep like invisible glass. "I'm sorry," the doctor had said, "but it's not possible." For months afterward, she had cried until she couldn't cry anymore. Her heart felt like a cracked cup, something that could hold no more joy. Friends tried to comfort her, but their kind words only made the emptiness louder. They said things like, "You can always adopt," or "Maybe it's for the best." But none of those words touched the ache inside her chest. She watched as life went on for everyone else. Her best friend Sarah had just welcomed her second child. Her social media feed was full of baby pictures, family trips, and smiling faces. Emily was happy for them, truly, but she couldn't help feeling left behind. Every time she scrolled through those photos, she felt like an outsider watching a life she was supposed to live. So she stopped going to gatherings. She stopped visiting friends who had children. She said she was busy with work, but the truth was she just couldn't bear the sight of what she had lost. Slowly, she built walls around her heart, thick walls that kept her safe from hope. Emily focused on her job, staying late at the office, finishing extra tasks just to keep her mind busy. The people around her thought she was strong, independent, and successful, but they didn't see the quiet evenings she spent alone, sitting on her couch with a cup of tea that always went cold. They didn't see how she looked at families in the park, watching children laugh as their mothers called them back. At night, when the world grew silent, her thoughts would return to the same painful question: why not me? There was no answer, just the sound of the rain outside and the echo of her own heartbeat in the empty apartment. Then, one ordinary afternoon, her life changed, though she didn't know it yet. It was raining again that day. Emily had stopped at a small coffee shop near her office, seeking shelter from the storm. The warm smell of coffee and fresh pastries wrapped around her like a soft blanket. She sat near the window, opened her laptop, and began typing an email. That's when she heard laughter. A man's gentle laugh, followed by the giggles of two children. She looked up. A man stood near the counter, trying to juggle 2 cups of coffee while holding the hand of a little girl and carrying a small boy in his arms. The little boy had dropped his toy car, and as the man bent to pick it up, the coffee nearly spilled. Without thinking, Emily got up and helped. "Here, let me hold that," she said, taking one of the cups before it could fall. The man smiled, a little embarrassed but grateful. "Thank you. I swear these two have more energy than I've ever had in my life." The girl grinned shyly at Emily. "Hi," she said. "Hi there," Emily replied with a smile. "What's your name?" "Lily," the girl said proudly, pointing to the boy in her father's arms. "And that's Max. He's my little brother." Emily looked at the boy, who was watching her with big, curious eyes. "Hi, Max." He hid his face against his father's shoulder, and both adults laughed. "I'm Daniel," the man said, shifting Max slightly so he could shake her hand. "You've officially saved my morning." "It's okay," Emily said softly. "I know how tricky coffee and kids can be." She didn't know why she said that. She didn't have children. But somehow the words just slipped out naturally. They ended up sitting at the next table, and for the next half hour they talked. Daniel told her that his wife had passed away 2 years ago. He worked as an engineer and was still learning how to manage everything alone: work, parenting, cooking, and keeping the kids happy. Emily listened, her heart softening with every word. There was no romantic spark at first, just a quiet understanding between 2 tired souls. When Daniel got up to leave, Lily ran over and hugged Emily around the waist. "Thank you for helping Daddy," she said in a small voice. Emily froze for a second, then gently hugged her back. "You're welcome, sweetheart." As they left, Daniel turned and smiled. "Maybe we'll see you here again." Emily nodded, but even after they were gone, she found herself smiling in a way she hadn't in a long time. That evening, she couldn't stop thinking about them. Something about that small family lingered in her mind. The warmth in Daniel's eyes, the innocence in the children's laughter, the way Lily had hugged her without hesitation. The next few days were ordinary, but every time it rained, Emily found herself walking past that same coffee shop. She told herself it was just a coincidence that she liked the coffee there, but deep down she was hoping. And then one afternoon she saw them again. Daniel was sitting by the window helping Lily with her homework, while Max played with his toy car on the table. When he saw Emily, he smiled. "Hey, the coffee hero is back," Emily laughed. "Looks like you're surviving without my help this time." "Barely," he said, shaking his head with a grin. "Sit with us? We could use some company." She hesitated, but then she sat down. And just like that, something began to change inside her. They started meeting more often, sometimes by accident, sometimes on purpose. Daniel would tell her stories about his late wife, about the nights when the house felt too quiet, and about how hard it was to be both mother and father. Emily listened, her heart aching for him, but also admiring his strength. The children quickly grew attached to her. Lily loved to show Emily her drawings, and Max often climbed into her lap without asking. Every time that happened, Emily felt something bloom inside her chest, a feeling she hadn't felt in years. It was warm and gentle, but also scary. She didn't understand why she cared so much. She told herself they were just friends, that she was just helping. But deep down, she knew that this family, this small, broken, beautiful family, was beginning to heal something in her too. One night, as she walked home under the city lights, Emily realized that for the first time in a long while she didn't feel empty. She felt something close to hope, but along with that hope came fear. She knew where this road could lead, and she wasn't sure she could bear to dream again. She had already lost so much once. Could she risk her heart again? She didn't know the answer. All she knew was that when she looked into Daniel's eyes and saw the way his children smiled at her, the world didn't feel quite so lonely anymore. And maybe, just maybe, her story wasn't over yet. Daniel sat on the edge of his bed, tying his shoelaces slowly, listening to the quiet breathing of his children from the next room. The clock on the wall showed 6:30 a.m. Another long day was waiting for him. He had to drop Lily and Max at school, rush to work, finish a project by noon, and somehow make it back in time to cook dinner. This was his life now, full of love, but also full of exhaustion. 2 years ago, he had been a different man. He had a wife, a partner, someone to share everything with. Back then, mornings were full of laughter, not silence. His wife, Anna, used to hum while making breakfast, and Lily would sit on the counter swinging her little legs while Max crawled around, chasing spoons that clattered to the floor. But then, one morning, the laughter stopped. Anna didn't wake up. It had been sudden and cruel, an illness that came quietly and took her before he could even say goodbye. Since that day, Daniel's world had changed. He had learned to live with the emptiness, but it never really left. Every night when he tucked the kids into bed, he still looked at the empty pillow beside his and whispered her name. He promised her he would take care of their children no matter how hard it got. And he tried, every single day. But some nights, when both children were asleep and the house was silent, Daniel felt like he was falling apart inside. He didn't let anyone see it, not even his family. He smiled for the kids, for his coworkers, for the world. But his heart was tired. Then, one rainy afternoon, he met Emily. At first, she was just a kind stranger who helped him at the coffee shop. But after that day, something about her stayed in his thoughts. Her calm voice, her soft smile, there was something peaceful about her. She didn't look at him with pity like others often did. She looked at him as if she understood what silence felt like. The next few times they met, he found himself opening up more than he usually did. Emily didn't ask many questions. She just listened. She laughed when he told funny stories about Lily and Max, and she didn't try to fix his pain, she simply sat with it. And that was enough. Daniel started to notice small things. How his children's eyes lit up whenever they saw her. How Lily ran to show her drawings. How Max would tug at Emily's sleeve and giggle when she made silly faces. He noticed how Emily always remembered their favorite snacks, how she brought extra napkins, how she tied Max's shoelaces without being asked. It wasn't long before she became a part of their routine. Sometimes she joined them for coffee, sometimes for lunch at the park. The children would chase pigeons while Emily and Daniel talked about life, about work, about music, about little things that didn't matter but somehow meant everything. Daniel didn't plan to fall for her. In fact, he had promised himself he wouldn't. Love had brought him too much pain already. But every time Emily laughed, it felt like a window opening in a dark room. Her presence made the days a little brighter. Still, he hesitated. He didn't want to rush into anything. He didn't know if she wanted to be part of a life that already had 2 children, and a lot of history. He was afraid of scaring her away, but Emily never seemed uncomfortable. She fit in naturally. She was gentle, patient, and always thoughtful. She didn't try to be their mother, yet somehow she became one, slowly, softly, without even realizing it. One evening they all went to the park together. The sky was turning orange with the setting sun. Lily and Max were playing on the swings while Daniel and Emily sat on a nearby bench. The air was cool and the sound of children's laughter echoed around them. "You're really good with them," Daniel said quietly. Emily smiled. "They're wonderful kids." "They like you," he said, glancing at her. "A lot." She looked at the children and said softly, "I like them too." There was a pause. The air between them felt different, warmer somehow. Daniel wanted to tell her how much she had changed their lives, how her presence had brought light back into their home. But he didn't know how. Instead, he said, "Thank you, Emily." "For what?" she asked, surprised. "For being here," he said simply. "You've done more than you know." Emily didn't reply. She just looked away, her eyes glistening slightly. She had been afraid of getting too close, but now it was too late. The children had already found a place in her heart. And Daniel? He made her feel something she thought she'd lost forever. Hope. That night, as she walked home, Emily couldn't stop smiling. But that smile also carried a quiet fear. She wasn't sure she was ready for what was happening. Daniel and the children were slowly becoming her world, and she didn't know if she deserved that kind of happiness. The next few weeks passed quickly. Emily began spending more time with them. Sometimes she helped Lily with schoolwork. Sometimes she took Max to the playground when Daniel had extra hours at work. The children started calling her Miss Emily, but sometimes, especially when they were sleepy, Lily would whisper, "Mommy," by mistake. Every time that happened, Emily's heart skipped a beat. She didn't correct the little girl. She just smiled and brushed her hair gently. But when she was alone, the words echoed in her mind, making her both happy and scared. Daniel noticed it too. He saw how natural Emily was with the children, how they listened to her, trusted her. He saw how her laughter filled the house again, how even the walls seemed to hum with warmth when she was around. One Sunday morning, Daniel invited her to breakfast. He cooked pancakes, slightly burnt but made with effort, and the children helped. Max spilled flour all over the counter and Lily laughed so hard she fell off the stool. Emily walked in just then and the sight made her heart melt. Daniel looked up, his face dusted with flour. "You're just in time to save breakfast." Emily laughed and joined in, flipping pancakes, wiping tiny hands, and stealing small moments of joy between chaos. For a while, it felt like they were already a family, a perfectly imperfect one. After breakfast, Daniel took the kids to the park again, and Emily went with them. They sat under a tree while Lily and Max ran around. "Do you ever get tired?" Emily asked softly. "All the time," Daniel said, smiling. "But it's worth it." She looked at him, admiring how much strength he carried behind that smile. "Sometimes," he added quietly, "I think I wouldn't have made it this far without you." Her heart skipped. She wanted to say something, but words felt too small for what she was feeling. That evening, after they said goodbye, Daniel stood at his window watching the rain fall outside. He thought about how empty life had been before Emily. She had brought back laughter, warmth, and hope, not only for him but for the kids too. He didn't know what their future would look like, but he knew one thing for sure. He didn't want a future without her in it. For the first time in years, Daniel felt like life was giving him a second chance. He just hoped Emily would be brave enough to take it too. And while he didn't say it out loud, he knew something deep in his heart. Love doesn't always arrive the way we expect it. Sometimes it comes quietly, in the form of a kind stranger holding a cup of coffee smiling through the rain. Emily woke up early that morning, long before the alarm went off. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her heart caught between happiness and fear. The last few months with Daniel, Lily, and Max had been like a dream, soft, warm, and full of quiet laughter. But dreams, she knew, didn't last forever. Every time she spent time with them, a voice inside her whispered, "Don't get too close." She tried to silence it, but it kept returning. She had promised herself long ago that she would never let hope fool her again. She couldn't have children of her own. That truth had broken her once. She wasn't sure if she could survive being broken again. Still, she couldn't stay away. That Sunday, Daniel had invited her to join them for a small picnic by the lake. The weather was beautiful, the sky painted with soft blue and white clouds drifting lazily above. When Emily arrived, Lily ran to her first, her face lighting up. "You came," Lily shouted, wrapping her arms around Emily's waist. "Of course I did," Emily said, smiling and bending to hug her back. "I wouldn't miss your picnic for the world." Max came running next, holding a small toy boat in his hands. "Emily, look! Daddy said we can make it float." Daniel walked behind them, carrying a basket full of food and a blanket draped over his shoulder. He looked relaxed, his eyes full of the kind of calm that only came when he was with his kids. And lately with her, too. "Good to see you," he said, smiling. Emily smiled back. "You too." They found a spot under a tree near the lake. The sun reflected off the water like tiny diamonds, and the breeze carried the soft laughter of children playing nearby. Emily helped Lily spread the blanket while Daniel set the food down. Soon the children were busy chasing butterflies, their giggles filling the air. Emily and Daniel sat quietly watching them. It felt peaceful, almost too peaceful. "You know," Daniel said, breaking the silence, "they ask about you all the time." "Do they?" Emily asked softly, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. He nodded. "Every morning. Max asks if we'll see you. Lily asks if you'll come for dinner again." Emily smiled, but her chest tightened. "They're sweet kids." "They are," Daniel said, his eyes warm. "And they're happy around you. Happier than I've seen them in a long time." Emily looked at the children, her smile fading just a little. "I'm glad. They deserve all the happiness in the world." Daniel studied her face for a moment. "You sound sad when you say that." She shook her head quickly. "No, I'm fine, just sometimes I forget what happiness feels like. You and the kids remind me." He didn't push her further. He just smiled and passed her a sandwich, changing the topic to something lighter. As the day went on, they laughed and talked about small things. Emily helped Lily build a small sandcastle near the water while Max splashed around, his laughter echoing like music. Every little moment made her heart ache in the best and worst way. When they packed up and walked back to the car, Lily slipped her hand into Emily's. "Can you come again next weekend?" she asked in her small, hopeful voice. Emily hesitated for just a moment, then nodded. "I'd love to." That night back home, Emily couldn't sleep. The memory of Lily's small hand in hers wouldn't leave her mind. For years, she had believed that she would never be called Mom, but these children, Daniel's children, made her feel something close to it, and that terrified her. What if she got too close, and one day it was all taken away? What if Daniel decided she wasn't right for them? What if the kids grew up and forgot about her? She turned on her side, hugging her pillow tightly, whispering into the dark, "I can't do this again." The next few days, she avoided Daniel's calls. She said she was busy with work. She wasn't lying, and her job really did keep her busy. But that wasn't the real reason. She was scared of how much she cared. Then one evening, Daniel showed up at her apartment. When she opened the door, surprise flashed across her face. "Daniel, is everything okay?" He smiled nervously, rubbing the back of his neck. "The kids wanted to see you. They made you something." Lily peeked from behind his leg, holding a small piece of paper. "We drew you, Emily, look!" Emily knelt down and took the paper. It was a drawing, a big stick figure family. Daniel was there, Lily and Max were there, and right beside them was her, holding their hands. Above it, in big, uneven letters, were the words, "Our family." Emily stared at the drawing for a long moment. Her throat tightened and tears filled her eyes before she could stop them. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Lily smiled proudly. "Daddy helped us write the words." Daniel's gaze was gentle, full of meaning. "They wanted to show you how they see you." Emily stood up, holding the picture to her chest. "You shouldn't have," she began, but her voice broke. "Emily," Daniel said softly. "What's wrong?" She looked away, blinking fast. I don't know if I can do this." "Do what?" he asked quietly. "Be part of this," she said, her voice trembling. "They're wonderful, and you're—" She paused, struggling for words. "But I can't be a mother, Daniel." "Not really. I tried once, and life said no. I can't let myself believe I can be that person again." Daniel's face softened. "Emily, you don't have to try to be anyone else. You already are exactly who they need." She shook her head, tears slipping down her cheeks. "You don't understand. I've lived with this pain for years. Every time I see a mother holding her child, it hurts. And now being around your kids, I love them, Daniel. But it scares me." He took a step closer. "Why?" "Because if I lose them, it'll break me," she whispered. For a long moment, they stood there in silence, the air thick with emotion. Then Daniel smiled faintly. "Emily, you won't lose them. And you won't lose me." She looked up at him, unsure. He continued, "You don't have to be a mother in the way you think. You already are one, in the way you love, the way you care, the way they look at you." Emily wanted to believe him, but fear still clung to her heart. "What if I can't give enough?" Daniel smiled gently. "You already have, more than you know." He reached out and handed her the drawing again. They don't see the woman who can't be a mother. They see the woman who makes their world brighter. Emily stared at the picture once more. Her heart was still trembling, but something inside her began to soften. Just a little. She smiled weakly through her tears. "Tell them thank you," she whispered. Daniel nodded. "I will. But they'd rather hear it from you." She looked down to see Lily and Max standing there, smiling up at her with eyes full of love and trust. Lily tugged at her sleeve. "Are you crying, Emily?" Emily laughed softly, wiping her cheeks. "Just happy tears." Max held up his small hands. "Can we have a hug?" And before she could answer, both children wrapped their arms around her. She knelt down and hugged them tightly, closing her eyes. The warmth of their small arms made her heart ache in the sweetest way. When she finally stood up, Daniel was still watching her, quietly, kindly. "Emily," he said softly, "you don't need to decide anything today. Just be here. That's enough." She nodded slowly. "I can try." That night after they left, Emily sat alone on her couch, staring at the drawing. The words "our family" seemed to shine brighter every time she looked at them. For years she had believed she was broken, that her story ended with loss. But maybe she was wrong. Maybe love had a way of finding her. Not in the form she expected, but in the one she needed most. As she turned off the light and went to bed, her heart still felt fragile. But there was something new inside it, something soft and brave. It was hope. And for the first time in a long while, she didn't push it away. Emily sat quietly in her small living room, holding the drawing Lily and Max had made for her the previous day. The words "our family" were still fresh in her mind, and a gentle warmth spread through her chest as she stared at the scribbled figures of herself, Daniel, and the children. She traced the lines with her finger, imagining the little hands that had drawn them. For so long she had believed that motherhood was something she could never experience, that it was a closed door she had no key for. Yet here were two children who had already opened that door for her, without asking for anything in return. She smiled softly, but then looked away, a shadow of doubt crossing her heart. Can I really be enough for them? She wondered. She had spent years living with the pain of loss, of hopes that never came true, and now, the fear that she might lose these small hearts she had begun to love so deeply held her back from fully stepping into the life she wanted. That evening, Daniel came to pick her up. He didn't speak much as he drove. The quiet comfort between them was something Emily had grown to cherish. When they arrived at the park, Lily and Max ran to meet them, their laughter breaking through the calm of the evening air. Emily knelt down to greet them. Lily hugged her tightly, whispering, "I missed you." Max tugged at her sleeve, giggling as he ran in circles. Seeing them so happy, so alive, made Emily's heart ache with joy and fear all at once. She realized how much she cared for these children, and the weight of that care terrified her. They spent the evening on the swings, chasing each other and feeding ducks by the small lake. Daniel watched them, a gentle smile on his face, and Emily couldn't help but notice the light in his eyes. For a moment, the world seemed perfect, full of laughter, love, and simple happiness. After the sun began to set, they spread a small blanket under a tree, and Daniel brought out some snacks he had prepared. The children eagerly ate, sharing bits of their food with Emily, who laughed at Max's messy attempts to feed the ducks. Daniel watched her carefully, noticing every small gesture. The way she tucked Max's hair behind his ear, the gentle way she held Lily's hand when she stumbled. He had seen women before, but none who seemed so naturally connected to his children, so full of care without trying to force it. "Emily," Daniel said softly after a while, breaking the comfortable silence, "do you know how much it means to me that you're here?" She looked up at him, her heart tightening. I know you don't have to say it," she replied quietly. "I want to," he said gently. "You've brought back laughter into this house. You've made my children feel safe again, loved again, and you've reminded me that life can be beautiful even after loss." Emily's eyes filled with tears, but she smiled through them. "I didn't mean to. I care about them, and about you, more than I thought I could." Daniel reached out and took her hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. "I know, and that's enough. That's all I could ever ask for." The words touched Emily deeply. She had never expected to hear anything like them. Her entire life she had believed she was incapable of love in the way a mother loved her children. She had imagined her heart could only hold grief, not joy. But Daniel's words reminded her that love wasn't about perfection. It was about showing up, caring, and being present. Later that night, after the children had fallen asleep, Daniel and Emily sat together on the couch, talking quietly about everything and nothing. Emily shared small pieces of her past, the heartbreaks, the failed attempts, the nights spent crying alone. Daniel listened, never judging, never interrupting. He simply held her hand, offering her comfort through presence alone. "I don't want to hurt them," Emily whispered finally, her voice trembling. "I care about them so much, but what if I can't be what they need?" Daniel pulled her closer. "Emily, look at them," he said softly. "They already see you as part of their world. They trust you. They love you. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be you, and that is more than enough." Emily closed her eyes, letting his words sink in. She realized she had been holding herself back, letting fear dictate her life. And all this time the truth had been simple. Love was not about what she couldn't do. It was about what she could give. The following weeks became a turning point for Emily. She started spending more time with Daniel's children, taking them on small adventures, helping them with schoolwork, and cooking simple meals with them. Each day she felt herself letting go of old fears and opening up to new possibilities. Lily would show her drawings, proudly declaring that Emily's picture was the best, and Max would cling to her hand as they walked to the playground, giggling and chattering without a care in the world. One afternoon, Emily watched the two children playing near the lake while Daniel sat beside her. He reached out and brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Emily," he said quietly, "do you realize how much love you've brought into our lives?" Emily shook her head, smiling faintly. "I didn't know I could." "Until now," Daniel smiled warmly. "Sometimes love finds us in ways we never expect. You didn't need to give birth to be a mother. You just needed to care. And that's exactly what you've done." Her heart swelled, and for the first time in years, Emily felt a sense of belonging. She realized that being a mother wasn't about biology. It was about heart, patience, and unwavering presence. And she had been doing all of that quietly without even realizing it. That evening, as she tucked Lily and Max into bed, they both whispered "Mom" in their sleepy voices. Emily froze, tears filling her eyes. She had expected them to call her that one day, but hearing it now so naturally made her heart ache with joy and fear. She didn't correct them. She simply held them close, whispering promises she intended to keep. After they left the room, Emily sat with Daniel in the quiet living room. The soft glow of the lamp illuminated their faces. She took a deep breath and finally spoke the words she had been holding back. "Daniel, I think I can do this. I think I can be here for them. For you." Daniel's eyes softened and he reached for her hand. "Emily, you already are. You've been from the start." Tears streamed down her face as she realized the truth of his words. She had spent years believing she was broken, that her chance at motherhood had ended before it began. But now, surrounded by love, laughter, and trust, she understood that life had given her a second chance, a chance to love, nurture, and belong. Days turned into weeks, and Emily became an inseparable part of their little family. She cooked Sunday breakfasts with Daniel, helped Lily with homework, and played endless games of hide-and-seek with Max. She no longer felt like an outsider peeking into a life she could never have. She felt like she belonged, fully, completely, and without reservation. One evening, as the sun set and the sky turned golden, Daniel stood behind Emily and watched her play with the children in the yard. He felt a deep sense of gratitude and awe. Life had brought them together in the most unexpected way, and yet it felt completely natural. Emily had healed their home with her love, and in turn, she had healed herself. Emily looked at the children and smiled, their laughter echoing in her ears. She felt a warmth in her chest she hadn't felt in years, a mixture of joy, love, and belonging. And for the first time, she didn't fear the future. She had realized that motherhood was not about the past she had lost. It was about the love she could give today, the small moments of care and attention that made all the difference. And as she watched Lily and Max running towards her, calling her name, Emily knew that she was exactly where she was meant to be. Love had found her in a way she had never imagined, and she had finally allowed herself to receive it. The morning sunlight poured into Daniel's small house, filling the rooms with warmth and soft golden light. The smell of pancakes and fresh bread drifted through the air. Emily moved quietly in the kitchen, humming a gentle tune as she prepared breakfast for the family. Lily and Max ran around chasing each other, laughing, and making small messes that only made Emily smile wider. For a long time, Emily had imagined mornings like this, but they were always in her dreams, distant and unreachable. Now she lived them. The children had already called her mom many times, but today it felt different. Today felt permanent, real, and filled with love that was no longer tentative or hesitant. Daniel came into the kitchen, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. He looked around at the scene, Emily moving with care, Lily and Max giggling, and felt a deep swell of gratitude. This woman had come into their lives quietly, bringing love and patience, filling the gaps left by absence, and healing old wounds without even trying. "Good morning," Daniel said softly. Emily turned, smiling. "Good morning," she replied, placing a plate of pancakes in front of him. The children bounced over, eagerly digging in. Max smeared syrup across the table, and Lily giggled at his messy hands. Emily laughed and wiped the syrup off his face. Daniel watched, quietly amazed. Every small gesture, every laugh, every shared glance between Emily and the children reminded him of the miracle that had quietly unfolded before his eyes. It had taken months for Emily to fully accept what was happening, to allow herself to feel joy without fear. She had feared losing them, feared failing, feared being inadequate. But now, watching the children run to her, hearing them call her mom, she realized she had never truly failed. She had simply been waiting for life to show her a different way to fulfill the dream she thought was lost forever. After breakfast, they decided to go for a walk in the nearby park. The sky was clear, the air fresh, and everything around them seemed brighter. Emily held Max's hand while Daniel held Lily's. Their steps were slow, careful, and filled with laughter as they talked about everything and nothing. Lily suddenly stopped, tugging Emily toward a small flower bed. "Look, Mom, these flowers are just like you," she said, her small voice filled with pride. Emily knelt beside her, touched by the child's innocence. "Like me? How so?" "Because they're bright and happy and make everyone smile," Lily said seriously, her eyes wide. Emily's heart swelled, and she felt a tear slip down her cheek. She hugged Lily tightly, whispering, "Thank you, sweetheart. You make me happy too." Daniel stood nearby, silently watching the scene. He knew that words were unnecessary. The love between them was already visible, in the way Emily cared for the children, in the way the children trusted her, and in the way they had slowly built a family together without realizing how strong their bond had become. As they walked further, Emily noticed how much the children had grown attached to her. Max held her hand as if it were the safest place in the world, and Lily constantly checked in with her, sharing stories and small secrets. Emily realized then that love wasn't measured in biology or past hardships. It was measured in moments like these, in the trust, laughter, and small gestures of care that made every day meaningful. Later that evening, after the children were asleep, Emily and Daniel sat together in the quiet living room. The house was peaceful, the kind of peace that came after a day filled with love and laughter. Emily leaned back on the couch, letting herself feel the comfort of belonging. "You know," Daniel said softly, taking her hand, "I used to think life after loss would always be empty. But then you came along, and now, I can't imagine it without you." Emily's eyes filled with tears, but she smiled. "I used to think I could never have a family, Daniel. I thought that part of my life was over, but now I see that love finds a way, even if it's not the way you expected." Daniel nodded. "Exactly. And I'm grateful every single day that it found us, that it found you." She looked at him, a mixture of joy and relief in her eyes. "I was afraid, you know. Afraid I wouldn't be enough. Afraid I'd break their hearts somehow." "You could never break them," Daniel said firmly. "You've given them more love than they've ever known. You've healed us all. Me, Lily, Max, without even realizing it." Emily rested her head on his shoulder, feeling the warmth and safety she had been searching for her whole life. "I never imagined I could feel this way again," she whispered. "So full of love, so happy." "And it's just the beginning," Daniel said softly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "This is our life now, a family, all of us together." In the following months, their life together grew stronger. Emily no longer questioned her place in the family. She joined Daniel in cooking meals, reading bedtime stories, helping with school projects, and planning small adventures. The children flourished, full of laughter, curiosity, and love. Every time they called her Mom, it felt like a promise fulfilled. A promise that love had a way of mending hearts and creating joy even after the deepest pain. One afternoon, as they sat in the living room, coloring and laughing, Lily turned to Emily. "Mom, can we go to the zoo tomorrow?" Emily smiled, ruffling her hair. "Of course, sweetie. We'll all go together," Max chimed in, holding up his drawing. "I want to show the monkeys my picture." Emily laughed, feeling a happiness she had once thought impossible. She looked at Daniel, who returned her gaze with the same quiet joy and understanding. Life had not turned out the way she had expected, but in ways she hadn't imagined it had given her everything she had ever wanted. Love, family, and a place to belong. That night, as Emily tucked Lily and Max into bed, she held them close, whispering promises and listening to their sleepy giggles. When the children finally drifted off to sleep, she stood quietly in the doorway, looking back at the peaceful scene. She realized that motherhood was not about birth or biology. It was about love, care, and presence, and she had given all of that to these children, who in turn had given her a place in their hearts. Daniel joined her quietly, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "They love you," he said softly. "More than words can ever say." Emily smiled, leaning into his embrace. "I love them too, and I love you. And I love you," Daniel whispered, holding her close. "We're a family now. All of us together forever." Emily felt a peace she had never known. For years she had believed she could never be a mother. But now, in the laughter of the children, in the warmth of Daniel's arms, and in the simple, joyful life they shared, she knew the truth. Motherhood had always been inside her. It had only been waiting for the right place, the right people, and the right love to awaken it. From that day forward, Emily no longer feared the past or questioned her worth. She had found her place, her family, and her happiness. The children called her Mom without hesitation. Daniel smiled at her every day with gratitude and love, and together they built a home full of warmth, laughter, and unshakable trust. Love had found its way, not the way she had expected, but in the most beautiful, perfect way possible, and Emily finally believed that she belonged completely and forever